Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. It's in the bag. We're here. ABB, how you doing today?
Doing well. Fall is here. I repeat, fall is here. My most favorite time of the year to disc golf probably is like early or mid-fall. I'll say mid-fall. Call me crazy. I like a cool disc golf round. That's my preferred disc golf round. Now, I did remember when I was throwing disc today, how I got to warm the fingers up a little bit because I just ripped like a Z disc immediately at like 80% power, and like the pain was real. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that feels like. But no, happy. We had a great week at USDGC last week. So thank you for everybody that came up and said, hey, you like In the Bag or Robbie C or Foundation or Grip Locked or Tour Life or whatever it is. All the support means a ton to us. And thank you all for being patient with no episode last week. We don't do that really often, but I think Robbie and I both agreed that we wanted to focus there. We didn't want to give you just like a halfway episode or a junk episode just to put something out. We'd rather just have some quality. So, but appreciate y'all being patient with that. And I mean, Robbie, I'm sure you felt that way. How do you feel about USDGC though?
It was great. It was my first USDGC. I told Lindsay like it's something that like it was just amazing. I feel like it's one that has to be on the calendar from here on out. Charlotte's just such a disc golf mecca, and I did find out that Charlotte and Rock Hill are not the same place.
No.
Like they're an hour away from each other, and so, but very convenient for, I mean, all the folks who are like who want to be able to experience that. If you live in Charlotte, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You can go to both tour championships this year and USDGC. But no, it was a blast. It's one of those really amazing things where when I get to go to events like tour events, I am just reminded of how amazing all of you are who are able to support and watch the content and things like that. Normally when I go, I try to find like a caddy gig. That was difficult this time because at USDGC, because it's been running for 26 years, most of the people have like their USDGC caddy. I kept describing it to folks who are not in the disc golf scene who were asking me how my trip was. I'm like, USDGC really does feel like the Augusta of disc golf. Like the history's there, the tradition's there. So no, it was a great experience. And we always appreciate when y'all walk up and you're like, hey, I listen to In the Bag every single week. Help shape my bag this way. Help shape my bag this way. Really, really, really appreciate it. So thank you guys, because it makes the joy of coming and recording super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this week should be a fun episode. This is I don't feel like this slot we talk about a whole lot, really. I think we talk about it in like slower speeds, but we really don't talk about this slot a ton. So should be a nice episode, some variety. I kind of, Robbie gave me some recommendations. I kind of had to go off the farm a little bit. So I actually ended up throwing kind of 4 different discs, which is not a usual format. So should be interesting. But if you're ready, Robbie, let's go ahead and grab Garrett and let's talk about these discs.
Let's do it, dude. Welcome in to the podcast. Garrett, how you doing today, sir?
Good. How you doing?
We're doing well. Hey, I'm doing well despite all the Red Wings gear you have on. That is a pain point for me, but I will not hold that against you currently, Garrett.
It's okay. I'm an Ohio boy, so I'm an Ohio State fan, so we're okay.
Okay, we're good then. All right. Well, 50%. We're 50-50 right now.
Right.
All right, man. Well, hey, we're happy to have you in. Excited for the episode. Kind of teased a little bit of it at the beginning. Again, I don't know the stuff like going in, but after seeing what I threw, and then I kind of went off the farm a little bit, and then seeing your bag afterward, and Robbie kind of giving me like some insight on his thoughts. It's gonna be fun, and we alluded to it offline, but maybe some bag trimming too, which is a fun little bonus that you're gonna get. But before we get into that, Robbie, let's learn about Garrett and his game.
Yeah. So Garrett, how long have you been playing disc golf, man?
For about a year.
Okay. Fantastic. Did you get introduced by friends or did you find it on your own? What was the vibe?
So I played when I was like super young because we like got a disc golf course finally put in Bell Fountain where I'm from. So like I would play for a little bit and then I kind of fell out of it, because like middle school me just didn't care. And then as I got older, I was like talking to my brother. I'm like, man, I was like, remember when like I threw that frisbee and I broke my grandma's window and she got really mad? I was like, man, like that'd be cool to like go out and try to like do again. And he's like, yeah. So we went out and tried, and I bought a nice Blizzard Boss because I thought that was the smartest move ever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then bought a DX Beast, which was not for me, it was for my brother. And we played like garbage, but had the time of our lives. And then I just started looking up YouTube videos and just kept playing ever since. And financially, I'm indebted to the sport.
I
I
hear
get it.
that.
I
Hey,
get it.
Robbie,
I love it.
how many, if you had to put a number on how many DX Beasts have been purchased by a new player or a player getting back into disc golf, I mean, that's got to be a very high number, right?
For sure. For
That
sure.
disc almost exclusively exists for that purpose. And the Blizzard Boss, I'd almost guarantee.
Yeah. Well, the funny part about the Blizzard Boss is the Blizzard Boss to me highlights the beauty of branding and the power of branding
Yeah.
because, I mean, you just walk in and you see that world record distance, 1108, and you're like, bruh, that's me. Especially if people haven't converted the fact that yards and feet are different when you're playing between golf. So I remember someone being like, yeah, I'm going to throw this 1100 yards. And I was like, that's
No.
insane,
Yeah.
dude.
That's funny. Well, it's just funny. Like that story. And I'm even thinking my buddy, shout out Todd, that when he started, he literally bought a DX Beast and I'm pretty sure a Blizzard Boss. And I just, that number's got to be astronomically high. But anyway, sorry, sidetrack, but I love that. And other sidetrack. There was someone at Worlds, I forget who it was, that was teeing off. I think he's on Team Discraft, but he's from Bell Fountain, Ohio as well.
Yeah, Nate
And-
Hecker.
Yeah, Nate Hecker, that's who it was. Yeah, Nate Hecker. And they were announcing him, and I was just from the crowd wanted to yell. They said Bellefontaine, which is like really how it's spelled and what people think.
Yeah.
And I want to be like, no, it's Bell Fountain. But that's how you can tell if someone's not from Ohio, Robbie. If they call
100%.
Bell Fountain, Bellefontaine.
Yeah. I would have been one of the Fontaine people to be like, oh, it's fancy. I gave you guys
Yeah,
the,
very
fancy
Very
pronunciation.
French city. They have nice pasta and bread there.
Yeah, only if.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, Garrett, we put you in a field and we were going to put a basket X amount of feet away from you. And we said, all right, how far do you feel like you can reach it consistently on forehand and backhand? How far away are we setting the basket?
So on backhand, like a clean golf shot is probably 300 to 315. And then for forehand, it's probably like 275 to like 290 range. Which is I've been definitely working on the forehand. Shout out Big Germ.
Yeah. Dude, I like that balance. That's that is something that a lot of people I feel like don't have, where it's like, oh my, they're not like wildly offset one or the other. So that's pretty solid. Now, if we took you on the putting green and we said, all right, we're going to put a basket X amount of feet away from you, or you're going to make 10 putts from 15 feet, 10 putts from 25, 10 putts from 40 feet, how many are you making at each station?
So from 15, I make about 8 to 10, or 8 out of 10. And then 25 feet, probably 6 or 7 out of 10. And then from 40, it's probably like 1 or 2. Like I'm hitting chains, I'm just not consistently hitting right where I want to with my aim point.
Okay.
I hear that.
Solid numbers. The video that is going live, we're recording this on Thursday. And my video that goes live on my channel there was at USDGC, there was a putting competition that you could take part in. And only one of the 12 stations was actually inside the circle. So a lot of it is just like long bombs. And I was reminded over and over again of like, man, circle 2 putting is just something. Like it is something. So totally feel that. Garrett, if you had to say what's the biggest strength of your game, what would you say?
Actually, it would be putting. Putting is probably one of my better strengths. I don't know. I was watching one of your videos and you said something about if you're a really good putter and you can't throw that far, pars and birdies will just come its way. And so I took that advice to heart and sat out there and really just started dialing in a putter and felt really good to finally like see putts go in and people be like, whoa, only been playing for a year. And it just felt good to finally be able to feel like I excelled at something, even if my drive was bad.
Yeah.
I hear that. Good putting makes up for a lot of mistakes, in my opinion.
It also makes you a really desirable doubles partner.
Yes.
Like nobody, even if you are a good putter, I feel like I'll say from personal experience, I'm a good putter. I have no worries like stepping up during doubles, trying to make putts and things like that. But it is nice when I go through a round and I'm like, oh, we just played doubles and we shot really well. I didn't have to putt the whole time. Like that is fine with me.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's take a look at your bag here, Garrett. You've got a few frisbees in here.
Yeah.
So we're looking at about 25 strong. So we're going to start. We're talking distance drivers on the trial section. So we're going to start with putters and kind of work our way up. So we'll start with the sore spot of the bag. You have these. You have this Berg in your bag.
I do.
What do you use the Berg for?
So the Berg, I started bagging because everybody around in my league had a Berg, and I was like, no, Robbie, said not the bag one. He said not the bag one, don't do it. And then so I got suckered in, decided to try it, and it's mainly just my forehand approach disc. So if I'm like 150 out, and if I have a clean line at the basket, it is just my forehand straight at the basket, beeline hitting chains, going for it.
Okay. I would say it's an appropriate use for a Berg. I'll say that. I'll say it out loud.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you kind of get the freedom to run the forehand approaches, but also lean into the fact that it doesn't go anywhere. So you can be very aggressive in running it. Is that kind of the vibe?
Pretty much, yeah. Sometimes it bites me because people say Berg don't have the glide, and it definitely has the glide at times. But for most of the time, it puts me right next to the basket, and it's nice.
Yeah. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, then, what's the Watt do for you?
The Watt is it's mainly a like a driving off the tee putter, like super straight. My understable guy to where I can, chuck it on Annie. I know it's going to reliably get over. I'm not trying to push it very far, but for a nice clean golf shot to get me into a nice good spot.
Okay. So you have 3 alpacas. One is an R blend. Is that one a thrower for you?
No, right now I just put that in as a putting putter with the Ohio weather getting cold. My P blends weren't sticking to my hand, so I've got the R blend in there now, which I am throwing it as well to try to get it really beat in for a good throwing putter for when the springtime comes. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was when I saw that. I don't know, Brad, if you were thinking the same thing. I was like, I wonder if the one alpaca like crosses lines with the Watt a little bit.
Yeah, I think it probably will for sure once it like seasons in a little bit. I was thinking that's like okay, these are my putting putters, and then I know a lot of people will go, okay, well this R blend is more for like my 50 foot and beyond jump putt kind of things because I really need to stick to my hand or whatever. So I didn't know if that's the theory you're going with too.
No, it's just I just have it in. I just got it because I kept feeling my hands slip off my putt, so I decided to go with an R blend that's a little softer. So I mean, I'm kind of throwing it to kind of get it more beat in, but I'm not. If I'm in a tournament, I'm not throwing it off the tee.
Gotcha. So then you've got a Eclipse Envy in there.
Yes.
That it seems like it's been there a bit.
Yeah.
It's been there for a little bit.
So what does it do for you?
That is my off the tee driving putter. It's not flippy, but it holds pretty straight and then kind of fades at the end. It's not like beefy overstable. It's just I can hit really clean golf lines with it. And sometimes if I want a more controlled shot going like 230, then I'm gonna whip it out and throw it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the beauty of those seasoned and Eclipse Envies. Like, I don't know about you, but I love Eclipse Envies, but I ended up taking them out because like in the wintertime they were just getting so slick for me. Do you feel that as well?
No, I haven't had it long enough to go into the winter months. So we'll see how it goes. A lot of these plastics, like with like Color Glow and even like some of the stuff, man, they're really just grippy in my hand. So it's kind of nice.
I think mine, it was finally just so beat in and so used that it was like getting a little smooth on the rims, and like it was just and it could have been mental too, because I kept like early releasing, it would slip out of my hand. So it may not be that it was the cold. I just like lost the confidence in it too. So just for whatever it's worth, I like to ask fellow Eclipse Envy throwers if you had that issue too.
Yeah, no, not yet.
So the drop, fairly new. How's it competing alongside the tactic that you have?
It's not really competing alongside it. I use them for two different shots. So the drop is more. So the reason why I got the soft tactic is because I wanted something that, if when I'm throwing it, it has a reliable overstability and it's going to stick to the ground. For when I don't want it to push too far away. And the drop is kind of new because I was a zone guy, liked the zone, but then I only liked the bang top zone. And then the bang top zone started getting too beat in. And I was like, well, we'll try the drop. And if not, we'll just use the, bang top zone as a nice, reliable, precious child. But, yeah, they're too different. They have the same stability. It's just one sticks and one will have a little bit more push and fly.
Okay. Fascinating. I'll be curious as the baseline tactic continues to sort of season and everything. Have you tried forehanding that Eclipse Envy?
I forehand it here and there. It just depends on the shot. Like if I'm in the woods and I need something to kind of push out, but I know it's going to go straight, then I'll throw the NB here and there.
Okay. Yeah. I just would be curious with the baseline side of that tactic, because the tactic is really, really nice. I know people, when I talked about making the transition to the zone, the tactic was one of the front runners for me when I ended up bagging the pig in the first place. So I could see a love for that sort of beating in straight, but it also comes with a premium plastic option, which is great.
Yeah, and I will say also too, Robbie, you mentioned the forehanding the Eclipse NV. That's probably what I miss the most about my beat in Eclipse NV is I had like a straighter forehand like type of approach, or if I was like off the fairway maybe and I need to hit like a line, but I still need something to fade where I would normally throw a zone and it might be too overstable for that shot. I would jump to the Eclipse Envy, and now I'm carrying like a separate zone, like a straighter zone for that. So it actually kind of made me carry an extra disc, not having that Eclipse Envy in the bag. So, so yeah, I would encourage you to try it a little bit more. You might end up loving it because it was like laser beam straight on forehand and then had overstability at the end.
Yeah, it's hard with the Envy because it's got a little bit of dome, and when I'm like trying to forehand, I don't like that because that exo soft, super soft tactic is super puddle topped. And it feels good in the hand to where I can rip it out, and even with it being so soft, I don't feel like it's just flopping out. It feels like just a normal like a C line tactic would.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I don't know that I've held like a super soft tactic before. I know that I've held like the first run of them, they were like, they had like soft and hard, but the softs were still like pretty firm. And the softs at that point were more overstable than the hards. So like, cause the C line ones hadn't been released yet.
Right.
Interesting. So moving on to mids then, you've got 5 mids in the bag, really spread out over a couple of manufacturers, which were kind of sick. So I want to kind of talk about them in pairs.
Okay.
So let's talk about the Pathfinder and the Detour side by side. What do those really do for one another?
So the Detour, I was looking for a flippy mid, and I've tried like the Supra, the Fuse, and it was just the hand feel that was really weird because it feels like you could just tell it's understable. And then I decided to put in and got a Detour, and when I got the Detour, I tried it out to see what it would do, and it's really nice. Like it holds the ante well. And it doesn't want to come back. It's just a good understable mid range, especially for me because I don't sometimes know how to like power down or give it less power. So it like does what I needed to. And then the Pathfinder, when I'm throwing it's kind of my do it all disc or whatever.
Yeah.
But I can't trust it on the ante to not semi start to pan out or whatever. It just doesn't want to get that far right of a distance that I need. But that Pathfinder, if I throw it on a slight bit of hyzer, it is riding straight the whole way, beeline booking.
So, is there ever a world you think that that workhorse Pathfinder gets seasoned enough that it ends up like kind of slotting into the detour slot for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. How? So this is a theory question more so than anything. How often when you're out there do you see a line where you're like, oh, I wish the Pathfinder could hold this, but I'm going to throw the detour anyways? Like, how often are you coming across that line, if that makes any sense?
It comes across pretty often, like especially if there's like a double mando or I need to hit something straight. Sometimes it comes across, and sometimes it's like I pick the detour and it's too flippy, or I pick the Pathfinder and it's a little too more like a little much more stable, and it comes across that path sometimes here and there. But yeah,
Yeah. So this is one where we talk about bag trimming. When I'm in a similar struggle, not in this slot, or I guess it is in this slot. Yeah, it is in this slot because I have two dunes in the bag in this slot. And I had a dune and an origin because the dune is very similar to the Pathfinder in terms of like laser straight. If you hit it really hard, it's going to stand up. Okay, cool. But like, it's not the flippiest disc in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up putting two dunes in the bag versus my dune and my origin because my origin does exactly what you're describing for the detour. Stands up super easily, flies straight, holds an Hyzer the whole way, all of that. My dune is starting to get there. How I got the dune there faster was by sacrificing a little bit of comfort in the present to make things more comfortable for me in the future. And I think for lots of folks, we have this like desire, or we see the path for the clarity to come, or we see where we can get a little less like conflict. But we want both options in there anyways because we want to score on every round. And I just think that like that's the theory part of, do you want to see that success? Because it sounds like it could be pretty frustrating if it's happening a lot where you're like, I'm coming across the decision between these two discs. It has to lower the does it? I guess it doesn't have to. Do you feel like it lowers your confidence in either of those discs because of the fact that you can like, oh, I needed to flip up. Ah, man, I should have gone Pathfinder. The detour was too flippy. Or, oh man, I'm going Pathfinder because the detour was too flippy last time, and now the Pathfinder was too stable. Like, do you find that ebb and flow happening in your rounds?
yeah. I mean, it doesn't make me lose my confidence because if I do hit the detour on the right angle, then it'll do exactly what I want. It'll flip up the flat and just be able to be flippy going up a hill, and then ride that straighter line. Yeah, it gets difficult here and there, but I mean, I'm just waiting for that Pathfinder to get beat into that point to where it can take over the detour. Love the detour, but yeah, if I can take that out and have a seasoned Pathfinder and that feels really good in the hand, then yeah, I will definitely take that detour out.
Yeah.
That
Awesome.
makes sense. So there's probably a world in which that realistic Robbie, he could find like a more overstable Pathfinder, a brand new one that kind of is in that MD3 slot, and then like a more beat-in Pathfinder that kind of is almost straddling the line between the Pathfinder and the Detour currently, that he can kind of like point and shoot really, right? And maybe eliminate the Detour or the MD3.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with all of the TSA plastics. I know that they're all MVP plastics, so I don't know like what all it's called. Because Ethos seems like it is their not neutron, but plasma plastic. It looks very plasma-y. I'm not sure. The comments can correct me on that. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly how stable Pathfinders get, but I definitely see that option. This C line MD3, the retooled one. So I want to talk about it alongside the MD4. What are kind of the differences between those two discs for you?
So I just got the MD4 recently. I put the MD3 in the bag because I had a more stable Pathfinder because it was super flat top. but they're kind of hard to come by because the Pathfinder for me and what everybody like when I'm watching people throw on YouTube and stuff, it reminds me of like a hex
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So it's more like it's very straight, but it's just, and then to come across that more overstable run, very hard to come by. So I was like, I need something more readily available. So I went with
Mm-hmm.
the MD3, which I can push it out and it's going to go straight, but definitely have fade going in. But it's still just like a straighter, excuse me, it's still straighter than like, or still have more of a stability than the Pathfinder. And then the MD4, I got it because I wanted that tweener disc in between my Quake and the MD3
Mm-hmm.
because the Quake just it gets super it's very beefy and I wanted something for a little bit more of a touch forehand approach, or if I need to throw something flat and hard and make sure it gets right, that it would go straight for a lot longer. But yeah, the MD4 is definitely more stable, but I can put it in a backhand and it feels really good getting over to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How long have you had this MD3?
I've had the MD3 in the bag now for probably about 2 months.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to do like a quick Google search on the plastic types of thought space. And so, yeah, ethos is proton. Ethereal is plasma, which is that like metal flakes mixed
Mm-hmm.
in, and then aura is their neutron. So, yeah, I definitely could see of the plastics that are listed. I could definitely understand how there's some more overstable ones out there, but like you said, finding flat top ones that have a nice hand feel to them,
That's
that's
difficult.
where we're getting real tough. But props to TSA, because I feel like they early on got into the whole like this is the run.
Mm-hmm.
So because they changed the stamps on every run, it's like, oh, if you know that this was the Pathfinders you like, you know where to search versus like, oh yeah, do you have a Pathfinder? Okay, what's let me feel it. Let's see how it is. You can just be like, oh, bang, it
Yeah.
has the lion on it.
Yeah.
That's the run I want. Yeah, I wish more folks did that, especially from like a retailer side. I'm sure that has to be so confusing, Brad. When
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we got another stock batch of whatever's, and you're like, all right, all these H5s. Wonder how these are going to fly today. It's
Yeah.
going to be a good time.
Yeah. I just felt some A5s a little earlier today. Like I grabbed a handful of them and they were all different.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's tough. Oh, hey, you made a comment too, which about like, you were saying understable up a hill. So I was of course curious, and I went to UDisc, and it looks like Mary Rutan Park is like your disc golf course you're probably playing.
Yes.
Okay, very interesting, Rob. You have to check this out later, but it's like there's like some beautiful wooded holes, but there some of these like this one I'm looking at right now is like on a hill, like by like a water like culvert, like a footbridge of some kind. So yeah, this course looks really fun. 20-hole course it looks like.
Yeah, 20-hole course of birdie or die.
Yeah, looks fun. So is that I guess we can wrap up the mids really quick. Sorry to, I realized I had that tool available to me for like, I imagine in Belt Fountain, there's only probably a handful of courses, and this looks like there's one right there immediately. So I feel like I'm in your head now. I know like I'm learning more about like what your game needs to be like, especially, are you really playing any other courses, or just like the main course you're playing?
I mean, that's the main course, but I travel around to like Dayton and go play those courses and stuff in Columbus here and there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, primarily though, I mainly play Buff Fountain because it's easier with a kiddo and being able to travel like 10 minutes instead of an hour.
Oh, for sure. Definitely understand that. Great. And then, hey, you have a Midnight Flyer Quake in the bag. I love that's a disc I've fallen in love with because of throwing it on the podcast.
Yep, shout out to Trevor Staub. That's the only reason why that disc got put in the bag. It was when he first started his channel and did his first in the bag, and he was like, "Man, this disc looks cool." And I'm like, "Man, it does look cool." And I don't have that slot. I'm gonna get one. That is the longest like reigning disc in the bag. I've had that almost about a year ago, like 2 days ago. I had a Snapchat memory pop up, and yeah, only because of Trevor Staub, and I made my girlfriend buy it for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great disc.
Is it still overstable for you?
Oh, very, very overstable. It's like even like since it's even got beat in, it's even more puddle topped. And yeah, it flies great. That disc is yeah, I can't see it leaving the bag. There's no way, especially on just like forehand, like 200 like 30 feet approaches that I need to like really get there. That disc is money.
Dude, come on. Happy to hear it. Happy to hear it. So jumping into fairway drivers, I think fairway drivers, there's certainly a section that looks pretty congested right now. So we'll get over there in a second. I want to talk about this F3 that is hanging out on the far side. What's the F3 do for you?
The F3 is it's really flippy. So I got it out of a rack in my local store, and they were like, "Hey, we're not selling Prodigy anymore, so everything's like really discounted." And I saw it and had an Isaac Robinson stamp. I'm like, I'm gonna be just like him. So went out, started throwing it, and it was kind of like pretty straight to slightly stable. And the more I've thrown it, it's definitely understable. And if I really need to get it on like a forehand flip up and to get it to ride straight, it works for that. If I really need a big turnover, it's great for that. It's definitely a workhorse and it's definitely understable. I will be sad whenever I lose that disc.
So, would you say like a longer detour for you?
Yes, yeah, definitely like a longer detour.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. I will say I'm gonna go slight spoiler here because I just want to jump ahead just to see walking down this line because I think this is going to give Brad some more insight as well as he's mentally prepping and stuff for the rec section. Is your DD a longer form of your F3?
Kind of. So it's excuse me, it's kind of like I can put it on a hyzer, I can get it to flip up, and it'll hold that hyzer. But if I hit it too hard or if I hit it wrong, then yes, it becomes severely flippy. It's like a super touchy disc for me, but I've kind of got it pretty dialed in where I can get it to go where I want it to, and that's definitely like the furthest flying disc in the bag on a good rip.
Okay. Okay. That is, you were describing my exact feelings about the DD.
Yep.
I did a tournament with the Swanky guys, and they had a DD in their players pack, and I was like, "Oh, sick! I've not thrown a DD before." So I got one, and the first throw I had with it, I felt like I threw it like baby hyzer, and it just turned all the way over, and I was like, "Okay, okay, let's go, a little more hyzer, a little more hyzer." And then the next one I threw on more hyzer, and then it stood up to flat, and then immediately dropped back down, and I was like, what are we doing, people? Like, how am I supposed to know how much angle I need for this? So that's fair. That's fair. Okay, let's talk congestion because you've got
It's a traffic jam over here.
it's a little clogged, and that's okay. Now, some of these, knowing like when some of them got released, I'd imagine some of these are newer alongside it, but you very much lean towards the overstable side for your fairway drivers. So before we even dive into like the specifics of it, is there any reason in particular that like I feel like the rest of your bag is very neutral, balanced to neutral type deal? You can see where you're like trying to hit that line, and then you get to fairways, and for some reason everything's on the overstable side. Any particular reason for that?
No, so like some of the disc in there, like the Skywalker 2, for instance, that flies like a really like flies like an eagle. And then the Horizon Skywalker is more of like your T-bird in a sense.
Mm,
So they are kind of different. I didn't get that moved over, but I do bag more overstable stuff. I feel like for me, if I hit it right, I can get the flight that it needs to. And like I feel like with I've had troubles with fairways with them being flippy. I feel like I'm not hitting them right or I'm hitting them too much and they just don't do what I would want them to do. And so I was like, well, momentalization. If I just beat them in enough, they'll start being flippy. And
that's
it
fair.
hasn't worked out yet.
Hey, touche, touche. Yeah, when I was looking at the FD1, I think of the FD1 being like you said, like a T-bird type deal. And so just on the chart, it was like these are so far over there. They can't actually be that way. But I also have to remind myself and others that, like, when we say T-bird, we're not talking about a straight disc. For most people, it is going to go straight for a little bit and then it's going to fade hard. Okay, so FD1, the Skywalker 2, you said is more eagle-like, and the Horizon is more T-bird. So where does the Pipeline fit into that sort of lineup?
So the pipeline, I've got it beat up to a nice point to where, like, if I really need something to go straight, like if I throw it flat and I need it to go straight for a long period of time, I'm pulling the pipeline out. The name says what the flight is. Literally, it goes dead straight, and I that's probably another one of like my further flying disc that I can push really really straight.
Now, you uploaded a picture, which is fantastic. For some reason, I'm like having a hard time seeing the picture. Is this from this year's stamp with the like graffiti kid style?
The Culver Dolan one.
Okay. So the reason I asked that is because I've heard from multiple people, Cole himself, that this year's run is a more overstable run of pipelines. So have you tried other pipelines, or is this like the only pipeline you've thrown?
This is the only pipeline I've thrown.
Okay. So if I were you, and we, once again, from thinning a bag out, I think that you can trim a bag by either just straight up removing options. You can trim a bag by saying, oh, I want these to season in a certain way. You can really attack it like a multitude of ways. I would highly encourage you to try to look at getting some other pipelines that are not from this year's run, just to see how they fly for you. Because I remember when DGA reached out and they were like, hey, we want you to review this year's tour series. I was like, sick. I threw that one, and I remember saying to the camera, and Sci Guy saw the footage of this. No one else did, because I went to throw it, and I was like, pipelines, they're super straight. That's what they're known for. I didn't say but your word and Garrett made a ton of sense. It's exactly what's in the name. You pipe it down the line, easy peasy. And so I like ripped one flat, and it just went and faded out. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm small today. Hold on, Sci Guy. I'm gonna go pick that up, and we're gonna try again. So I like run down the field. I pick it up. I come right back. I was like, all right, the pipeline, it's pretty straight. All you gotta do is rip it flat, and it goes here. And I went whoop, and then it did the exact same thing again. And I was like, all right, Sci Guy, I'm getting a little frustrated here. I'm gonna go pick it up one more time, and we're just gonna take whatever flight it gives us. And then, yep. So it does exactly what it does. It's just not your average pipeline. So I would highly encourage, if you're like, I wish I had a pipeline that lived between that one and my F3. That's a stock pipeline. Like, it is incredibly neutral. So just some options to look at there. So the Vanguard, then, how does the Vanguard slot in alongside your FD1s?
So the Vanguard definitely pushes a lot straighter. It's almost like by Horizon FD1, but
Okay.
because I was bagging a Thunderbird for a while. I had a Star Thunderbird, loved that disc, but I got sent one of those Vanguards, and so I was like, I'm gonna try it out in that slot, see how it goes. And I really like it, especially in the new Sea Line Color Glow plastic that Discmania has put out. It feels very good, flies just like that Star Thunderbird I have, and that's another one that can get crushed, and it has some good stability to where I can put on some slight flex, and it's just gonna ride that a nice little S curve and go almost where I want it to.
Yeah, I could be crazy, but Brad, you may know better than I. Is the Vanguard? I'm pretty sure like Hunter at multiple points has had a Vanguard in place of his Thunderbirds. I said Hunterbird.
That's funny. Yeah, no, he likes the Vanguard, definitely. Yeah, I think been in and out of his bag in that slot.
Yeah. So with two FD3s, then you have an S line FD3, and then obviously the new is it the Alden Harris solar flare? Is that,
Yes.
Yep.
so does that S line one fly a little straighter, or are they pretty similar right now?
The S line definitely flies a little straighter for sure. Because I had a Raptor I got in a player's pack, and it was super board flat, and I liked it, and then I beat it up to a really good point, and then it got lost. I don't know where it went, but I had a cap wrap to go alongside with it. And so I was like, I'm just going to get an S line FD3 and then get the new Horizon because I know that they were claiming it out to be a Doombird 4. It definitely flies pretty close to it. I had a buddy who let me try out his FD or his Doombird 4 up against that, and it's pretty similar. And it's actually a really nice flight. I really like it. I like the overstability. It's not like super cap wrap overstable like the new Z Flex Jawbreaker one,
Yeah.
but because that's ridiculous. I couldn't even throw it. That was super utility. But this one it's still utility, but I'm able to definitely push it farther and like able to like actually like hammer on it on the forehand because the FD3s are mainly just a forehand disc. And if I have to use them on backhand, I will, but that's mainly a forehand disc for me.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. I'm going to be honest. This is why this game is confusing for us, especially. And I don't even mean disc golf. I mean the game of guests on in the back because I don't know about you, Brad, but I'm looking at that congestion spot and I'm like, yeah, this seems super overlapped. But it actually doesn't. Like it feels. Most of these things have like a very. I could see some hard decision making between like the pipeline, the FD1s, all like very nuanced between each other. But I don't know that that's like on days where you're off, that's going to backfire hardcore, right? Like on days where you're off, you're going to be like, is it the Horizon? Is it the Color Glow? It was the pipeline. But on days where you're on and you're really feeling it, I feel like you're going to hit them all extremely well. So.
Well, I'm just going to say this, and I mean this with respect. This is an intervention, Garrett. You just like Discmania, and you just like to buy the new Discmania stuff. And I think if you took the same approach to your fairways as you did your mid-ranges, you would probably increase your scoring ability, especially on a birdie or die course. I think the nuances between Solar Flare FD3, S-Line FD3, Vanguard, like even just those three, I think the nuances are really probably not. And I'm saying this because I've had this talk internally to myself. You think there's all this nuance? There's probably not. And you probably can get away with like spacing stuff out a little bit more and focusing on more of like how you throw certain things. And like I felt like when I had like this, and I have some congestion in like that upper fairway, lower distance driver spot currently for me. And I'm like, I've just agreed to just rip all that out and go with things that I know that are going to give me consistent. If I'm trying to score and I'm trying to get better, I'm trying to improve my form, I'm trying to increase distance, like this nuance is not good for that because you can't have nuance you're tweaking in your discs and your throw and your mental game and your scoring ability and like thinking theory through the course. Like you've got to like pick one area to improve. And this is my opinion. It's unsolicited and this is an intervention. Sorry. But I think you should maybe really think about it and say, okay, could this FD3 that I have, this S-Line FD3, could there be a world where that comes out? The FD3, so the Solar Flare FD3 is like my overstable, like wind fighter, or I really need something to get left. I'm in jail. I really need to throw that shot. And can I wipe out the FD3 and even the Vanguard maybe? And then is my pipeline, my like straight disc that I can yam on that like is still overstable at the end. And then, and this is controversial, I think there is definitely a gap between your pipeline and your F3 based on what you said. So instead of like trying to beat these FD1s and to be more flippy, do I go to an FD and have like the FD is that kind of middle ground between the pipeline and the F3? So that's just my thought. Robbie, do you have any thoughts on that specific comment?
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever tried. How many pipelines have you thrown, Brad?
I've thrown two. I threw like an older one, and then I threw like last year's tour series.
Okay. Because I would be curious how a pipeline flies in comparison to like a fresh FD.
Probably similar based on what I've heard and what I threw.
Yeah. That may be a fun little, video or something for you to try out, like the two side by side. Because that's where I agree that I think that instead of like, I have to go through, because right now bags can get like prepped into here's where I want it to be. But like we're super far away from that. And then also the deep pain that you feel of, and this has happened to me on several Trash Panda like dunes in the past, is every time I get a dune starting to be like exactly where I would need it to be, or I like ideally want it to be, I either lose it or I give it to someone, like just straight up. So I think if you were like, okay, I want my Pathfinder to eventually season here, I want my FDs to eventually season into here, like that's a lot of shot shaping that has to happen in order for that to occur. So yeah, I can see a world that instead of like, I got to get both of these to all season in, that yeah, going with a new FD or a new pipeline could really shine.
Yeah, and also with the nuances in between them, you're not throwing any of them enough to really season them in quickly enough to be where you want them to be. So yeah, and even if you don't like commit to just taking them out, if you're like, okay, well, this week the rounds I play, I'm only going to play with my Solar Flare and my Skywalker 2, you know what I mean? And like use those so you throw them a lot more and force yourself to throw them a lot more, and that might help you A, beat them in, but B, also really see like, okay, I can throw other shots with them, or oh no, I can't throw other shots with them.
Oh,
Yeah, I
definitely.
thought about taking out that S line FD3 and keeping the solar flare in, and then keeping the Vanguard in, because the Vanguard can kind of slot for that FD3 on a more touchier level. And then I do kind of like for myself the difference between the Skywalker 2 and the Horizon FD1, just because I can push the Horizon FD1 a lot straighter and a lot farther. The Skywalker 2 is mainly kind of like a utility. Like if I need something to not go too far, because I mean the Skywalker 2 is mainly a forehand disc, and I've kind of got that pipeline in to where it's beat in enough to where I can put it on Annie and it'll hold Annie, and still pan back, but not come back as hard as like a Vanguard would. And
Gotcha.
that's why I mean, because it's like super dead straight. I can work it on a lot of different angles, but I can push it farther. It's like that, my good in between golf line shot between like a Vanguard and the FD1s.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm messing around with it, adjusting, because I mean, what's the worst that happens, right? Like you pull it out for 2 weeks and you're like, I miss it. Sick.
Yeah.
It's right back in. Like I definitely, can agree with everything both of y'all are saying of, yeah, let's mess around with it. Let's see what happens. So let's talk. We're going to talk distance drivers for a brief second. And then Brad, if you have questions about the Berserker that you want to ask before we dive into that, just in preparation for the discs you tried. So you've got a Halo Wraith, a DD1, and a Birdie Reach that are there. What do those three discs kind of do for you?
So I just put in the DD1, and because I had an interval that I got, and it was super domey, and I thought it would be kind of like a nice straight flyer. No, that disc was super beefy, and so it just didn't feel good on a forehand. And I was like, huh, maybe I can get something else, because I've heard the Nicola Santala DD1s are kind of beefy. So I was like, maybe if I throw that in there, it's flatter and it's easier to forehand. I'll like that better. So the Nicola Santala one is definitely more of like my really pushover forehand distance driver that, I need to really chop it over. The the Halo Wraith is kind of like in between, to where it's still overstable, but it feels better on a backhand. Because I feel like with the DD1, I can't get my fingers under there because I've got pretty big hands, so it's hard to get under there. With the Wraith, I was able to get underneath there. The Proto Reach is beat up, and it's got Anthony Bedance's signature on it, so there's got to be some sort of good luck to come along with it.
True that.
It's definitely, I can hit it on some Hyzer, and it'll flip up the flat, go straight, and then kind of fade out left at the end. So it's kind of like that weird spot to where I thought about taking out the Halo Wraith for the time being and just leaving the birdie disc in there and the DD and just going down to 3 to where it has those 3 different slots.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that decision is very, very much there, because would you say that the DD1 has more than 2 fade?
Definitely. It definitely has more than that because it's super flat top with like a slight dome.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that being an easy decision to pull that one out. So
Hmm.
yeah, no, it makes sense on like a lot of different levels. Brad, any questions you have about the Berserker before we dive into it?
Yeah, I know you mentioned the DD earlier was like pretty finicky for you or touchy, I think is the word you used. Tell me about the Berserker. I mean, based on the numbers, it seems like that thing is just going to, you release it on this much Hyzer, like, super Hyzer, and it flips up and turns for you. Like, is it extremely flippy? Is it touchy for you as well? Do you find yourself not even throwing it?
I really don't find myself throwing it unless like you're racing on a fun line because I was trying to find that understable 9 speed slot.
Mm,
Excuse me, and I just felt like I couldn't. And then a buddy of mine was like, "Here, try this out." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And it's the super most, you can just tell it's understable, domey UFO looking disc I've ever felt in my life.
hmm
But on some fun lines, it flies great, but it's not something that I would pull out in a tournament and feel confident with because it is very flippy. Like you said, I can put it on some hyzer, it flips up, goes like this. Like I've tried just using it for like a flip up, backhand, forehand,
hmm
and it still burns over.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you? This is maybe a weird question, but what do you want it to be? Like, Robbie, one of the few things he told me, like before we started filming, is you said, "quote You're looking for that slot, and the Berserker ain't it." So, like, what do you want? Like, what are you looking for,
I'm
or
looking
what
for
do you what do
something
you
I
need?
can work on angles. I mean, I want something that's kind of flippy, not too flippy. I'm able to work it on an angle and it be kind of that workhorse 10 speed to where it's a good middle ground to where I can just hit lines that I would like to hit. Like if I throw it on hyzer, it could flip up, hyzer out.
Hmm.
If I put it on some Annie, it'll pan, fade out. It's kind of a neutral 10 speed slot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that makes sense. And then,
Longer detour F3
yeah,
type deal.
and then the D, and just a clarification on the DD really quick. The reason it's touchy, and it's probably just like not riding that line of neutrality, because it's like if you, where it is 11 speed and it does have the glide that it has, it's like, okay, if you hit it too hard on the wrong angle, it's just like going right forever on backhand. And you see, you can get it to flip up and go straight, but not really. Is it like, it's like that weird middle where you can't really, it's not really just like a neutral disc, but it's not really like a stable disc. It's not, and it's too understable when you like mess up. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, sweet. All right, Robbie. Well, full disclosure, I think I already had an answer even before I asked any of those questions, but I think that kind of maybe
Okay.
confirmed it, but it'll be interesting to talk through these. So, I did throw 4 different discs, Garrett, which is not typical to do. So, Robbie, I'll really need your help if you want to guide through the conversation, because I feel like I'm a little biased at the moment because I think I have the idea, but I'd like you to maybe walk me through.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you throw?
Okay, so 3 molds, 4 discs. So I threw the Freetail from Mint. I threw recycled ESP Heat. And I threw Avenger SS was the other mold, but I threw ESP, but I also threw Z as well. So, and for those of you out there who are Avenger SS or have been heartbroken by the Avenger SS like me in my early days, you realize these are 2 different discs. These are not the same disc, at least in my opinion. So that's what we threw today. Do you have experience with any of these, Garrett?
I have experience with the heat, but only in Big Z plastic.
Okay, good to know.
Okay.
Don't know the weight, but yeah, as it came out of the bags, it might have been a lighter version that I was throwing wrong, and
Hmm.
yeah, I think that was the disc that made me heartbroken from flipping 9 speeds.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Totally fair. Totally fair. So, you're able to take these out here, Brad. What experience did you have with the? You kind of mentioned the past trauma from
Hmm.
the Avenger SS. What experience did you have with these discs coming into today?
Okay,
What
so
preconceived notions did you have?
I'll give you the rundown of all of them because I do have experience with all these discs, which is also a rare experience, I think, too, Robbie. That doesn't happen too often. Freetail I threw along probably about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, and I was always like, man, this disc is like so flippy. Even like less, I was less skilled then than I am now, and it was still pretty flippy for me. And I was like, and I know where you're talking about the berserker, where you're like, oh, it just feels understable, feels like a UFO, it's domey, it's like, all this stuff. The freetail doesn't feel that understable when you grab it. It's like really, to me, it's really deceptive because you can see here, it's not like domey really at all. Actually, it has kind of like a flat top, but it's really the wing that's like very, it is called freetail. I guess I'm just kind of getting that. But yeah, the wing that's kind of like really understable. So that was my experience with the freetail. Heat, I, in the past and still today, think that for a newer player or like an intermediate player, the heat is a cheat code for distance. And throwing that today, still feel that way. I just minimal effort through it so far. And then the Avenger SS, the trauma there is, and it's not fair to the Avenger SS, but I'm watching Paul Macbeth throw Avenger SS rollers, right? That's the roller he's throwing. And I'm like, man. And then when I started understanding understability and arm speed, I'm like, well, I want something understable, and I should be able to throw this so far, and it should turn for me and all this stuff. Well, I picked up a max weight Z Avenger SS that's not that at all. And also look at this. This one's flat. So like, and there's some variety. Now this ESP one does have some dome to it. So I think the Avenger SS is like in that category that I put like the Mamba and the Roadrunner in, is like, until you get to a skill level, the flight numbers are super deceptive. And like, I just don't think they really, for a beginner, it's like really confusing because they don't really line up. You really have to like, now the Avenger SS is probably like really accurate flight numbers, but that 10 speed part has to be like a 10 speed like thrower before you really see the results of that. Now, like a freetail, I feel like you could throw that in the hands of pretty much anybody starting that's going to be understable for them or close to it. So it's like kind of errors to the understable side, whereas the Avenger SS has a -3-1. It's really not a -3-1 until you throw the thing super hard, or you get super, when it gets beat up, it's definitely that. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's really where that preconceived notion for the Avenger SS came from, is like starting out, I saw the roller. I'm like, well, I can't throw a roller, but it's going to be understable. Cheat code for distance. Boom. Oh, why is this overstable for me? So I think that's the deception there. But I will say, after throwing again today and like knowing more and like being able to throw better and like pay attention to angles and knowing about arm speed and all this stuff, it's like, oh, this is a much more workable disc now, knowing what to expect.
Gotcha. Okay. Sick. So you took them out there. We knew we wanted something on the understable side. So what kind of angles were you throwing it on initially?
So I was trying to throw them all on. I gave myself some extra time today, and I was like really making sure I understood like what these discs are going to do on different angles. So I threw them all on my normal angle, and I tried not to like let myself think understable, right? I'm just like throwing them on my normal angle. What do they do? Freetail is like someone smacked it to the right. Like I throw it on a little baby Hyzer and it just turns right immediately. I will say, like, on my normal release angle, the freetail is kind of tricky to find out, like, okay, like, well, I found, and I don't know if this is correct, Robbie, I just noticed this, but I found like after I threw it for a little bit, I was correcting like the nose angle, like to like compensate for the understability. I was like, oh, I got to throw this really high to like keep it in the air and throw distance with it. So I don't know if that's like a normal thing, like a really understable disc. I've got to give it some like sky time to like do its thing, versus like if I threw it like flat or on my baby Hyzer and straight, like it was getting to the ground pretty quickly because it was so understable. Like it did have kind of a dive to it. If I needed a bag of roller disc for me on my, like, I'm going to throw a roller, like this particular freetail feels like that to me. The heat on my normal, actually, let's go to the freetail. I'll just stay with the freetail and I'll go through each one. Obviously flat, it's going to like turn and burn. Annie is like a roller. Now, if I threw it on extreme Hyzer, it was funny because like there was a tipping point in the Hyzer angle where I threw it hard on Hyzer. It would flip up really quickly and then just gently turn. Like it didn't like keep that aggressive flip up. It's like it swung up and then turned a little bit. and went straight after that. So there was like a breaking point where it was like enough Hyzer, but it was a lot. It was a lot of Hyzer. Forehand, I tried the forehand too. I have a decent amount of Hyzer on my forehand. Not as much as I thought after watching some videos of myself, but I do have a little bit of Hyzer swing up on my forehand, and it was still understable. So it would flip up and turn left. It was just, it's not going to be a forehand disc for me unless it's maybe like a get out of jail, like little tiny flip or a little tiny flick that I need to stay straight. So I'm going to go ahead and say here, Robbie, and unless you disagree, that this is not the disc you're probably looking for because it is touchy and you're trying to get away from touchy. And if the DD is touchy for you, this is going to be, again, there's probably a place. Like if I threw this really soft, it would have like a nice, gentle left to right movement on backhand. But I'm with you. I like to throw harder. So like when I feel like when I power down is when mistakes happen. Not the disc's fault, my fault, but I'm just going to go ahead and eliminate the free tail now for you because I think we're just like not talking about that at this point. Now, our conversation changes when we get to the Heat and the Avenger SS. I think we're in the right ballpark here. I think I'm also going to eliminate the Z Avenger SS as well because it does have some stability to it, and I think that it's really going to kind of run into like maybe even where you want your pipeline to be. It's probably going to be straighter than your pipeline, but they just start off this particular one where it's so flat. The first throw I threw with it, I was like, "What the heck did I just throw?" And I was like, "Oh, there's that Avenger SS pain and heartache that I remember." So like after throwing it for a minute and like learning it, like I could manipulate it. I could, if I threw it really hard, could get it to turn the way it's supposed to. But also on the other end of the spectrum, instead of powering way down, but if I power way up, there's a lot of errors in that realm as well. That's why I like to keep in that like 80% realm in my game. So unless you disagree, Robbie, I'm going to eliminate the Z Avenger SS also.
I'm here for it.
So
I'm here for it.
I think the real conversation, I think the real conversation is between the Avenger SS and the ESP and the Heat and this recycled ESP. They're both 170, 172, so they're not super lightweight, but they're definitely like in that middle ground for weight. I am concerned that maybe you have a little bit more of like a flat to like Annie pull through release. Does that come across to you at all, Robbie, based on his conversation in other discs, or no?
Yeah, I guess I would more so fire at Garrett's way and just see like, do you feel like you throw it more on a flat to Annie?
No, I feel like my problem is I'm going flat. Sometimes it's like my flat is a slight Annie, but then it's Hyzer because I've been kind of figuring out how to work on my angles with my body, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's definitely been Hyzer. Like if I know it's flippy, I feel like, or like if I'm looking at numbers and I know it's flippy, I'm definitely like going to like try to push it on Hyzer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be my interpretation is that when you're throwing, because your bag is like somewhat extremes and you have so much stuff that's on the stable side, I think you're creating some natural Anheuser shots in order to get straight shots out of those, as that you are hitting a lot of them on Anheuser. But the fact that you have the detour and the F3 that are usable for you also lets me know that I agree with that. Like when you're throwing something flippy, you can kind of turn it off to that. But yeah, if the majority of shots are being thrown with I even just think about the fact that of the phrase that you used of I want something that I can hit lines with, because you want it to stand up and do that. That comes from wanting the easier way to hit it with an understable disc, as opposed to okay, in order to get this FD1 to fly straight, I've got to hit it on Annie. But like that's the case. If you're telling me the pipeline holds really straight for you and then fades like minimally at the end, from the words of Cole Redallen himself, you're throwing it on Anheuser. So like that's fair. So it just sounds like you're very much on like your bag extremes. Like you're either throwing it on Annie basically for flat, or you're throwing it on Hyzer to get him to stand up. So it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah. Where I'm kind of getting stuck now, I was pretty confident in my decision, and then I'm just kind of thinking about it a little bit more. I'm kind of like right in the middle of these two discs because I think the thing I like about the Heat is you don't have to throw it super hard. You can throw it hard-ish, but you can't like blast a Heat or it becomes really unstable, at least for me. But and again, that may be like the pull through and like, maybe giving it some unintentional flat to Annie where I'm trying to do Hyzer. But the thing I like about the Heat is number one, I said it earlier, it goes for me, and it always, even at the beginning, it goes so far. It's like always the disc. Like if someone's trying to get into distance drivers and then playing for a little while, and maybe they only have like a 250 distance. I'm like, hey, here's a Heat. It's going to push for them. It's probably going to be straight and give them like more pushing distance before it fades out a little bit. This Heat did still have a little finish, so I didn't ever feel like, even if I put a lot of power in it, like I never felt like it was going to roll on me, which I liked. I just feel like it would flip up pretty easily without a ton of like extra effort for me, which is hard to find a disc that just like flips up easy for me. But it flipped up easy, and if I threw it on my normal release, it would flip up and turn slightly, and then again, it wouldn't ever like completely like just burn to the right, and it would never completely fade out. It would just kind of like push or carry that like Anheuser a little way, and then as it like right as it was getting ready to drop out of the air, like it's starting to, it doesn't fade, I'm not gonna use the word fade, but it like doesn't like keep going right. It's like more like kind of lands, I guess, maybe arrows to a little bit of fade. So that's what I like about that. It was fun throwing on forehand. If I like just threw a little like chip up, like I could throw it pretty far on forehand because it would flip up and turn a little bit, but I would see a little overstability on easy forehand. The reason that the Avenger SS, however, is getting in the way now of I was originally like Heat, no questions asked. That's the disc I want to recommend for you. But you said like you want something moldable and reliable. And like this Avenger SS kind of reminds me more of how you described your F3. Like it, you can flip it up and go straight. You can like give it flat or a little Annie. It'll hold the Annie line. You can give it some air and it'll hold out the Annie line. If you really throw it in a lot of Hyzer, it will flip up and push and then have a little bit of fade at the end. I gave it a lot of Hyzer one time, and it did actually like flare on the ground because I think I didn't throw it very far because I was focused on the Hyzer, but you can use it for other stuff. But if you're really looking for that understable, straight to understable slot, this is going to cover more bandwidth, I think, than the Heat will. I'm worried that the Heat is going to be too flippy for you, and like it's going to like just be like, I don't really like. I don't think it's like touchy, but I think it's going to be more understable versus like something that you can use for multiple shots. How do you feel about that, Robbie?
Yeah. It definitely, I can see, I feel locked in with you on the confusion between them. Like it is.
My gut says Heat, but like my mind is like the Avenger SS is getting in the way. And here's what typically in this scenario, I just would send you both of them, but I don't want to do that to you because you're already dealing with that in other spots. Because I think what's going to happen, you're like, oh, well, this one does this and this one does this, and I'm going to put them both in here. And like that is not what we want to do for you. I don't know, Robbie. Okay, here's another. This is a course question. Do you feel like you have a decent forehand though, so you're throwing forehands on like those left to right motion shots. Do you have a lot of gaps you need to hit, like as far as like just like a flip up straight kind of gap on your course?
Yeah, there's a lot of definitely like double mandos and a lot of mandos period where you want to make sure you're hitting your gap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess my real question here would be, you mentioned that the only disc that you have experience with out of the ones we listed was a Heat, and it turned you off of Flippy 9 speeds.
Yeah.
So in the similar vein to how we started the conversation with Brad saying like, hey, here's my experience with the Avenger SS, and like I had to overcome it. And like, it sounds like during this session, Brad was able to overcome Avenger SS woes. Like, is that an issue that you felt in your disc golf journey of this year so far, Garrett? Is that like, if you have a bad reaction to a disc, like if we put this heat, if we send you the heat, hypothetically, we'll play the worst scenario out, right? We send the heat and you're like, all right, new man, new time. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. And you rip this heat and it just burns over because you throw it like you throw your Skywalker instead of how you should throw your Detour, and it burns over. Is there immediate flashbacks? Are there a possibility of flashbacks of like, oh no, it's happening again? It's just not the heat for me. Like, is that within the realm of possibility, do you feel?
I mean, no. I mean, I'm not one person to sit there and say, "Oh, that disc is absolutely horrible," because a lot of it's user error. You know what I mean? I mean, a disc for you could be great, and then a disc for me is really bad.
Yeah.
So, and as I've grown, I mean, because that was like one of the first discs I ever got for myself, because I literally heard everybody say easy distance, and I'm like, distance, woohoo, bingo. That's when I got it, and then it was just like, I was like, oh, you didn't give me distance. But I mean, that goes to saying my form was probably absolutely terrible and, needs work. And, I'm never opposed to trying a disc for a second time or giving anything a chance. Because I definitely try to take my time seriously out in the field by like throwing the same shots, seeing what reaction goes with what. I mean, that's how, I slimmed down my bag a lot more. Actually, I believe I had like 30 discs and I finally was able to take 5 out because it was, getting really crowded and I knew it.
Yeah. So that's where I think I would agree, Brad, and that like leaning to the heat and letting the heat shine, because it's also a different plastic. Like this plastic didn't exist a year ago. So the new plastic could also be something that you kind of feel and you're like, wow, this is it. Like, I really love this plastic. I love how it feels, things like that. So I would agree heat. I think heat is a great choice.
Yeah. And I think, this one, I think is going to do all the things you want it to do and you want that slot to have. And in my experience with heats, the Big Z heat is my least favorite. I usually recommend like ESP or Z to people that are wanting to do that thing. So, we're just sending you the heat. I feel good about the heat. I don't feel bad about that recommendation. It was my gut at the beginning. I think it was Robbie's gut at the beginning. So let's send that out to you. Give it some throws, and I think it'll be exactly what you need to get that berserker out of there, maybe even that DD out of there for you, and you can just focus on some other slots.
Oh, definitely,
dude. Come on. Well, Garrett, if we send you this, would you be willing to come back on and let us know how it flies for you?
Oh, 100%,
dude. Come on. Well, Garrett, we appreciate you coming on, man, and look forward to having you on a future episode to see if round 2 of the heat was the best round.
Alrighty.
All right, man.
Thank you guys so much for having me on here.
Of course, man. We'll see you.
Another one. Here we go.
Another one. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I like when it is a tough decision.
Yeah.
I think the ones where it's like kind of cut and dry almost makes me feel like I recommended a bad one, like for you to try. Whereas when it's like, okay, but I mean, this one's on you, Brent. You pulled out some bangers. So,
yeah. I mean, I just hope he doesn't get in. It's like, oh, this is trash. I remember why the heat is trash. These guys are trash. Foundation, Robbie C, trash. Yeah. So we'll see. Well, ironically enough, this is trash. It is recycled. So whatever. Take that, double trash. All right. Well, yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully it treats him well. I do think it'll be a nice comfort, maybe is the word for that area. And he can kind of like, just like stop worrying about it. He has a disc to do it. And then he'll be good to go for some of those, like all those Mandos he has to hit.
Come on. Well, Brad, some people aren't going to be heat people. Some people aren't going to be Avenger SS people. Some people aren't Discraft people,
True.
But thankfully, they don't have to be, because there's new stuff coming in the warehouse all the time. What's new in the warehouse, brother?
All right. It is like full Halloween in here today and this week. So we have a lot of Halloween stuff. If you are any of those folks that did the MVP Halloween pre-order, that stuff has already shipped out to you. You may even already have it by this time, depending on how far away you are from our warehouse. So you already have that. But we did buy extra to drop on, this week and on the drop date. So there may be some like Eclipse Detours, Eclipse Waves, Eclipse Pixels. Those of you who want a premium plastic pixels, and Fission Pyros. So make sure you check that out. Those are all live and those are ready to ship. So that's exciting. We have a ton of like Discmania Halloween stuff, including they did this Glow Sea Lion Glow Cloudbreaker, or Horizon Cloud. I don't know what that the actual plastic description is, but it's a Glow Cloudbreaker, and they kind of redid all of their like player series, but like in a Halloween theme. So instead of like the eagle or whatever, or the bird that's on the Cloudbreaker, it's a bat, which is kind of fun. Nordic Phenom has like the pumpkin head instead of like a bobcat, which is fun. Skywalker, I think it's a zombie or something, but and I think they're all in glow too, which is nice. So you have like maybe some of your favorites and you're like, oh, it's glow season. Well, you can just throw them in there. They're all like spooky Halloween themed, so those are all fun. So you can check those out. It looks like we're gonna have some stock Innova probably go up, so like restock on Gorgons if you're Gorgon folks. That's fun. Also, there's Halloween AVRs and rocks that are glow and Gorgons that are glow. So all the Halloween. We have our new college hats. Those are back in stock. So like the bone colorway and the blue or navy colorway are in. We have two new ones. We have black and we have a like two-tone one. So make sure you check those out. I'm going to go pick them up right after we're done recording, but we're going to have a fresh stock of windbreaker, foundation embroidered windbreakers.
Hey-o.
Classy, solid black with white embroidery on the chest. Classy. So if it's windbreaker season, it's time for it. So that'll be in stock. We have a bunch of cool stuff from USDGC that we purchased from Discraft that was only available there. We're going to try to get that back up, but as always, like recently restocked is your best friend. So make sure you are always checking that out. But we just look on the table. We have like Crystal Z Impacts, which is random. Z Jawbreaker Drives. We have some like cool, like they're like Buzz stamped cicadas, which is very cool. So Glow Lunas, Glow Onyxes, the ESP Glow. Hades, Zeus, I think. So I'm just kind of looking over on the table, but all that stuff's going up between now and next week. So make sure you're checking that out too. We're going to try to get some of it up, but again, we have 1,000 things we're trying to get up before then. So yeah. And then also subscription box. Some came back in stock today. I don't know if they'll be back in stock tomorrow, but I think we have like 5 left to do. And this month, spooky theme as well. It's out of this world. It's extraterrestrial. It's alien. We have the first ever run of ET2 that's custom stamped for us, which is very cool. We have some custom stamped aliens and some custom stamped A5s with an alien foundation stamp on them, and the swag item. Something we just went weird on this whole thing. What we've never done is it's a patch. It's like a triangle patch. And it's yellow. It's kind of obnoxious, and it glows in the dark. So very cool.
Ooh,
yeah. So
that's fun.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even know it's an option, but here it is. We're going all out, and like we warned you, like October, November, December boxes, and even January's box are all going to be like they're bangers. They have fire. They are lit, as the kids say. Whatever else the kids say, they are that. They're gas. I think the kids say that. So make sure you check it out. Like I said, there's only a handful left, and like just always check that, because subscriptions like they get canceled, or like we put more out, or we buy more discs, or we up the quantity because we just like, oh wow, people want this box, which is probably what's going to happen with this box. So make sure you check that out. Check out recently restocked, and eventually, I think it's this week, we're gonna have Hunterbirds, Halo Hunterbirds, Halo Thunderbird. Big Con, Big Fish, Coffee Blend Wizards, and coming soon, new Robbie stamped Birdie Blend Wizards. Not Dennis, even though that would be a very October theme, right? But first ever like Robbie C stamp, Robbie C logo on a disc, right?
Yeah, with foundation, we have not run. We've not run any Robbie stamps whatsoever. So
Awesome. So yeah, we thank you all as always. While you're shopping, make sure you check it out. And whether if your bag's crowded or not, if it's good,
Keep it in the bag.
we'll see y'all next week.